Hello everyone. In the recent bits and pieces video that I did, I showed that my truck's headliner was getting like really baggy and saggy and stuff. So today we're gonna fix it, and we're gonna start off by pulling this off. I've never done this before, so this is kind of a first for me. And it should be fairly straightforward. And there's that. It's like a nice little poncho or something. Alright, now the fun part, removing all this foam. And on the edges it's already kind of like somewhat coming apart, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wire brush and just kind of like scrape away at it, try to get all this off, because the new material is probably not going to adhere very well on this foam, and the foam's already falling apart, so it's kind of pointless to keep it. Right, I got my wire brush and my vacuum hose, and this is probably going to take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to speed through it. All the foam material's been removed. What I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it a wipe. You can, kind of feel like there's still a little bit of stickiness from the foam there. So I'm going to wipe all that off. And then I have to fix this crack right here, which you may have noticed. This just broke from me handling it. When I was pulling it out of the truck, it kind of, bent, because this is sort of a weak spot. It's really thin right here. This is what I'm going to be using in the back. It's like a piece of cardstock material from something. I don't know. I kind of kept this around. It seems fairly strong, and it's not like this stuff's going to be getting wet anyway. So I'm going to spray on one side a contact adhesive, and I'm going to spray some on the other side, let it get tacky for a little bit, and then I'm just going to plop this right on there. I just cut this to shape so that it kind of fits in here without, being visible or anything from the bottom. I am not going to put anything on the bottom here. That's going to be covered up by the material itself. I just want this piece here to strengthen the back of it. This is what I'm going to be using. It's called the headliner adhesive, which is pretty self-explanatory if you ask me. It's a high temperature according to the package. It's made by Force Field. I hope I can get in the car after that. I'm hoping one can's enough. It seems like kind of a tall boy can. It's taller than like a regular spray can, usually like this long. Okay, I've got both sides sprayed, the piece of cardstock and then the liner. I'm going to let them get tacky for a second there. Once it's ready, what I'm going to do to try to get the best alignment I can on this crack is I'm going to stick one side on, but I'm going to separate the other side, so I'm going to keep them away like this. And once that's done, then I will bring this edge in contact with the edge on the other side and then settle it down so that hopefully I can get that crack to, line up pretty well. Okay, so this side is fairly well adhered. It's very tacky now, and I'm now going to bring this side in. It's going to be kind of difficult because it's hard to tilt this. I don't want to crack it anymore, so I'm going to bring in the bottom edge first and slowly start applying the... Alright, come on, line up. There we go. There we go. Okay. Alright, it's not the best thing ever, but it's enough to keep this from getting damaged any further. This is the material I'm using. It's just kind of like plain black felt, like the kind you'd use for lining a sub box or something like that. Nothing fancy. I guess you can get liner material made, specifically for this, but I just wanted plain black. It'll help hide, like stains and stuff a little bit better. The beige, I wasn't really a fan of like that tan color. So I bought 2 yards. And it should be way bigger than what I actually need for this, but it's better to have extra material than not have enough to begin with. I'm going to try to make it so that this crease where the material is folded over in half is laying right along the middle of the headliner, and that'll give me sort of a point of reference. Alright, now that I have the material draped over the entire liner and I kind of have the crease in the center, I'm going to fold it over in half along that crease. All right, now I'm gonna spray a bit of a strip along the liner and on the bit of the felt. And I'm gonna bring that down and tack it down, and I'll finish the rest of it off. So we're gonna start over here. Stuff looks like cotton candy. Okay, this is nice and tacky. I'm gonna start bringing this over. I should probably start in the middle. That would make some sense, wouldn't it? Alright, this is gonna be kind of difficult because I can't bring both sides in at once. But maybe I'll just kind of start rolling it over like this. Okay, that's working out like that, just like that. All right, got the one half of this done. And one little thing I just kind of learned here is it's best if you work in like small sections, like do a little bit at a time. And you know, spray, let it get tacky, and then tack it down. It's easier if you do that than if you spray like, you know, a big area at once, because then while you're sitting here trying to tack it and stretch it out and get everything kind of in place, it tends to dry up and then it won't tack as well anymore. You have to give it a little bit of a, just kind of a light spray on both surfaces again to get it to tack. In places where you have like little contours and stuff kind of like this where it goes in, it helps to stretch the material and then get it to form to what you need to. Then if you try to just tack it down in there and then work out, because then you get little creases. I straightened these out as much as I could, but they're still sort of visible there. It's not too bad. I mean, it's really not going to be noticeable in the end. Since this felt stuff is fairly stretchy, it's a little forgiving when it comes to that. So as long as you stretch it out and you form it to where you need it to go, it actually doesn't turn out so bad. So that whole side there is already done. I almost made it with the one can, but because I ended up kind of wasting some of the other parts where I let it dry too long and then it wasn't too tacky enough anymore, I didn't have enough to finish this little piece right here. And then up here, the can just doesn't have any left. I got more adhesive and now I have finished applying all the felt. I did make a couple mistakes. Right here in this part, I used a little too much adhesive on the other side and it leaked through when I was pushing it down. So not much I can really do about that one. And then over on this side, I forgot to push this down. So this is still kind of floating, but this I can fix. I can go from the other side and just try to spray the adhesive in there and then tack it back down. So this one's not too bad. This one here, boo. I think what I can do for this one here that I didn't tack down very properly is I could stick the nozzle in from the bottom. I mean, I would do it with the headline flipped over, and then this would be pointing up like that, and then I'll just kind of go around. Because I couldn't see how much I was spraying in here, it ended up soaking through the material. So even though I've got it all tacked down now, there's adhesive that seeped out of the side right there. So time to rip it off, start over again. Nah, I guess I'm just gonna leave it. Maybe try to cover it up with something black there so it's not so visible. I'm just cutting out the last of it here, and I found that the easiest way to cut this so that it stays fairly straight and lined up is to just kind of pull it towards the back side of it, which would actually be like the top side, and just slice along the curvature of the opening. And it's good to have a really sharp blade because this one's not exactly the sharpest and it's having a little bit of a hard time cutting through the material. I mean, it's still going because it's sharp enough, but it's a lot easier when the blade is a lot sharper. I ended up having to put another layer of this cardstock right here. It was way too weak and it was already starting to tear the one that I laid down originally, so it should be strong enough. I think the reason why it was bending was because I had to flip this over, and so as it's bending it starts getting weaker, but this is going to be, you know, stationary once it's in the vehicle, so it should be okay. Oops, almost forgot to reapply this pad that fell off. All right, now that it's done, how does it look? Well, other than these two spots here that totally suck, it's tolerable. I think it could have been better. Right here, this didn't tack down very well, but I really can't do anything about that now. So I'm just basically gonna have to leave it as is. I mean, in the future, I guess if I really wanted to, I could spray another layer of adhesive and put like another layer of felt here, which would also kind of thicken it up a bit, because the foam on the back of that layer of cloth material that I had on there, you know, made it a little bit fatter. It's actually a lot thinner now than it used to be. So I don't know. I mean, for now, it'll look a lot better with this on than just a completely bare roof, you know, with all the wires and everything running through it. And then so it's tolerable. It's just not as great as I would have wanted. So this is what it looks like now with absolutely no headliner. So it turns out that cardstock material really wasn't all that great. It ended up starting to tear, so I ended up peeling it off. And what I did instead is I got a little piece of plate from an old radio, cut it to shape, and then I applied some of that contact adhesive on both sides, stuck that on, and I mean, it's a lot more rigid, which is kind of a good and a bad thing at the same time. All right, so after struggling for a while trying to figure out how to get this thing back in the car, because I had the hardest time trying to figure out how to even get it out in the first place, and trying to get it in was a totally different beast. I kind of popped that metal piece out a few times and I had to like stick it back on, but luckily the adhesive was still kind of a little pliable that it was still able to stick back on, so it doesn't look too bad up there in the front. There's a bit of a contrast now between some of the things in here, so as you can see, but I might just take care of that later. But as far as the headliner goes, it definitely looks a lot better than it did with the saggy stuff and the bare ceiling, so I'm okay with that. I can handle that. On the two areas right here where the adhesive kind of seeped through, I used a little bit of permanent marker to kind of hide my failures a little bit, so they're not as visible, and if I'm not looking for it, I really don't notice it now. You can kind of see it here on the camera just a little bit. There's a little bit of white there. But overall, it's okay. I just gotta finish putting the rest of the trim in the vehicle now, but I'm pretty much done. There's these two clips that were supposed to go like up here in this area, but they're a pain to remove. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna put those on just yet. I might just leave them out and maybe, I don't know, maybe paint them black or something, so that they're not as visible once they're in, because I don't want to put them in, decide I want to remove them later to make them black. And yeah, as you can see, they were really difficult to remove, so I'd rather not struggle with that, so I'm just going to leave these off for now. All right guys, so thanks for watching me struggle and fail but ultimately getting somewhat of a decent result done. So thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you guys soon around the bench.